everyone, and welcome back to the Spark AI show, where we attempt to bring a little bit of levity to AI in the accounting profession, try and explore the capabilities and new opportunities that this technology is providing us. So I'm really excited about our episode today. I've got Dave Haase with us from TruePrep. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Hello, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Dave, you're with TruePrep, and TruePrep is a reasonably new product that you've been in the works with. But I kind of want to talk, maybe just quickly do a brief introduction of yourself, your background, and kind of where you've come from.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And happy to be in front of this audience and love talking about AI in the accounting world. I'm a CPA. I've owned a firm in the Bay Area since 2015 and actually bought it from my mom originally. So I like to think I have an even longer history in the kind of tax and bookkeeping world than that. And, we'll talk more about this, but I finally, got a little bit frustrated with the technology that we had to lean on in the industry, and so decided to start TruePrep about a year ago. Amid the whole storm of AI that was in the news on a daily basis, and have had a lot of fun building products and a lot of hope for what's coming here in the future. But yeah, that's my quick background. I live in San Diego now, and have a few kids I love playing with and other things. But I'm sure other than that, I spend a lot of time thinking about accounting and tax and how to make this job a little bit better for all of us.
Nice. So you grew up with a parent that was an accountant then.
Yeah, exactly. My mom is a CPA.
Nice, excellent. So my father was a CPA, and I chose to diverge. So I did
Yeah.
not buy into the firm. I did not go that route. But excellent. So
Yep.
you
I
chose that
totally
option.
understand that decision.
That's awesome. So I am curious, are you still actively, involved in the day-to-day with the firm?
Yep, I am. I don't do as much tax preparation and review as I used to. I mainly prepare my own tax returns and for the companies that I'm involved in, and then I review probably 20 or 30 returns a year. But I'm very involved in like staffing, and then just overseeing, our technology, which is becoming a bigger part of the profession, right? And making sure we're using the best tools and we're automating as quickly as possible. And then we're dealing with issues like everyone in the industry is dealing with right now, like turnover, right, of staff and things like that.
Give me just so our audience has a bit of a picture for, the kind of firm you're running. So just number of staff, kind of clients you serve, that kind of thing.
Yep. So we have 12 staff. We serve primarily high wealth individuals and business owners, and then small businesses, right? And so typical, average CPA firm, I would say. I am the only partner at the firm, so a little bit different in that way. And I actually bought three different firms and put them together. And one of the cool things there is I got to see lots of different types of technology that those firms were using, which was kind of a helpful piece of background for me as we scaled. But we're a pretty typical small firm.
Excellent. So talk a little bit about, so let's dig into the why behind starting TruePrep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, you know, the quickest answer is that when COVID hit, we, like every firm, I think, struggled to, it brought on a lot of new challenges for us. And the major ones that led to TruePrep were, going completely remote and having to rely on technology in a different way than we had previously. And then the struggle to retain and recruit staff. Just, in the Bay Area, especially, like, people are expensive. And if they're not working efficiently, it's a major challenge for small firms. And even though when we went remote, we went to a lot of remote staff members, that just brought on new challenges for us in how we use our software and also how to manage productivity and make sure that we're working as productively as possible. And to be honest, like in 2023, which feels like forever ago now, I just kind of thought, like, why am I still paying people, a pretty high average hourly rate, especially when fully loaded, to type in numbers off of a PDF? Like, I can't believe we're still doing this. So I was like, no one else is going to solve this problem. I'm going to try to do it myself.
That's awesome. And so how do you see, what has the benefit been of having that firm experience, not only the experience, but just it's in your pocket still, and being able to just run
Yeah.
thoughts and ideas and capabilities by them?
Yeah. I mean, it's really, really important. I don't think I could have started this without having worked in the industry for a long time. This is a really technical profession. And to give you like some very nuanced examples, even understanding like what are the different templates for a W-2, and like if there's a letter in this box and a number, or there's like two numbers or two numbers and two letters, like how do I interpret that? All those little tiny details are part of why it's so hard to innovate with technology in this space. You really have to have detailed knowledge of the tax world to do anything here that's meaningful. And then like, I joke with people that it's an industry where it requires incredible technical knowledge, and there's also incredible risk associated with making mistakes, and that makes it really hard to innovate. You need to be thoughtful about security. You need to be thoughtful about accuracy. All the things that you can imagine. And those things might sound like simple when you just say them out loud, but they're actually really, really complex. And so that's something that we've had to really spend a lot of time considering. So if I didn't come from the industry, I don't think it ever would have happened. At least not as quickly as it has. And I think that's part of why we don't see like lots of technology innovation, especially in the tax space, is it's just so technical in nature.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the technical, I've been working in accounting product, and the technical is definitely, it is challenging. It just is challenging. It makes it more difficult. I'm
Yep.
curious on the timing of the work you did and starting the work on the product. You mentioned, about a year ago or so. When you started, did you start it because of the affordances that AI was enabling, or did you start it and go, oh, and also AI is enabling a lot of opportunity here?
Yeah, so I mean, in part, it was because of the attention on AI in 2023. I kind of thought if I don't do this now, then someone else is gonna figure it out, and it had just been on my mind for a long time. But we started with like computer vision, which actually didn't really change much in 2023. It had changed in the like 2015 to 2020. I think there was some pretty material steps forward. And computer vision actually from a language model or foundational model perspective has improved in the last 12 months for sure. But it's not that useful for what we do right now because it's not accurate enough. We need like 99.9% accuracy basically, right? Or somewhere thereabouts. And so I did it in part because of the attention of ChatGPT in particular, because I thought like, it's going to be really cool what we can build with this. And I had actually worked with another tech company as like at first an outsourced CFO, and then I started to do some like more operational work. And we actually built some of the tools that we're using for TruePrep. So actually, like I was seeing it happen in real time in a totally different context. This is like a chemical e-commerce marketplace. But I saw us
Okay.
use computer vision to take catalogs and turn it into an e-commerce experience, supplement the data with some different data sources that you have out there publicly, make sure that it's accurate because we were dealing with like flammable and dangerous chemicals. And then we put a language model on top of it so we could talk to our own data, which is like really funny because with TruePrep, we've ended up doing a lot of the same things. So I was seeing it happen in real time. That was probably more of it for me is I pulled our top engineer and said, hey, if we can do this with really high accuracy, there's some crazy stuff that we could do in the tax space because I still have people typing in numbers into tax returns, and those people are expensive. They're smart folks, and then at the end of the day, what's even worse is we provide a pretty bad client experience because we're so busy typing numbers in and making sure they're correct that we like can't even answer emails sometimes. And so, it's funny. Jack, who's our head of AI now, was like almost didn't believe me at first. He's like, okay, well, hold on. I don't, he's like, there's no way that's possibly happening. So we had this hilarious late last summer, we started working on it and had a really funny back and forth on like, is this real? Like, could people still be typing in numbers in 2024 off of PDFs? Like, don't we have better technology than this? So that was kind of the origin of it. But it was in part because of the attention of ChatGPT for sure.
Yeah. You just hit on something there, which I think is super interesting and super common, certainly in the tech space, and that's just that diversity of experience and being able to experience what you had with the chemical with that company and the needs and the capabilities that you were able to understand there, and how you were able to then go, oh, and we can apply this in a completely different area, but it's the same problem essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, that's how innovation happens, right? It's like you stitch together dots that someone hadn't put together previously, and in order to expose yourself to that, you got to be doing different things. And that's something I probably do that too much, to be honest with you. I get bored easily, so I'm always working on different projects, and I think that's been helpful here for sure. Less helpful in other parts of my life, but helpful here.
Yeah. I kind of want to dive in a little bit more to the sort of the combination of, you talked about the computer vision. We've got a little bit of machine learning. We've got some of the Gen AI stuff to allow some of the conversational elements. Just talk about how that the combination of all those technologies has maybe coming together to produce something that may not have been previously feasible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. We could spend so much time on this, but at a high level, I will say that what's been really interesting to me is that, if you take computer vision, for example, by itself, it's useful in certain applications, but like not that useful generally, I would say, right? Like we're probably not using a lot of computer vision in many of the products that we use today, even outside of like, think on like a personal level. Gmail is not necessarily like reading a PDF from our emails and like putting that in context in a message yet, though who knows what it may be doing in a few years. And then similarly, if you look at like GPT-4o, which is a really awesome foundational model and has come a long way in 12 months, its primary uses, at least from my perspective today, are like it's really good at drafting content. Like if you're writing an email or you're writing a blog post, it's really good at helping people code, right? Because that's like language based. But the reality is like there's not that many amazing applications yet from just like foundational models or language models. But when you combine the two, there's some like really interesting new things that we can do in the tax space in particular, where historically we've had siloed data, and that data, in large part is like trapped inside a PDF or a JPEG or whatever it might be that where we can't get to it easily without having someone go and interpret it. Right? Like if a client asks me a question, I still go back to their tax return and I look at that particular line on their tax return. That's like just an incredible waste of time when you think about the cumulative time spent on that for professionals. And so it's really like from my perspective, the technologies themselves are really interesting and they're moving fast, especially in terms of foundational models and their capabilities. And so it's going to be really interesting to see the next few years. Right now, we're seeing the first few really good applications that actually save people time, but they're in really specific verticals. And so we're hoping to be one of the ones that bring it to the tax vertical for sure, and the accounting vertical in general. But that being said, I think you do still need an industry expert who can apply the AI technology to a specific use case. And so I think like what I've heard people say that I think is really interesting is previously with software, you were basically using software to automate processes without AI. Now you're doing it with AI, but you're still going to need a software layer, I think, for many applications. It's not like we're going to go start dropping tax returns into GPT or something like that and having it like, or dropping source documents, having it kick out a tax return. Actually, it was funny in GPT-4, one of the examples they gave was like doing a tax return for an individual, which I thought was super interesting. And to be honest, like a really terrible example for them to use because I think it created the wrong perception. Like, GPT can't even add 2+2. Like we don't want it to be doing our tax return and then signing it under the penalty of perjury from my perspective. Maybe I'm biased as a CPA, but I thought that was a pretty bad example, but a really interesting one. It got a lot of people's attention. And so I think, it's just fascinating to watch it move. And I will say that technology space is moving faster than maybe any technology landscape that we've seen in history. And so even 12 or 24 months from now, it may be just really different than where it is today. But it's really fun to be in that on a daily basis with TruePrep. It's exciting to see, and I think it can really help this industry.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you narrowed in on the problem. And this maybe we'll geek out on a little bit of product development stuff here for just a moment, but how you narrowed in on the specific problem, and then how you obviously you have firsthand knowledge of the problem. It came from sort of a lived experience, but then how did you step into not only validating the need for the problem, but just sort of those early, getting early users in there and validating that it's working the way it should. And just talk a little bit about the process, the product development process there.
Yeah. I mean, so spent about 9 years experiencing the problems firsthand. And I will say, I think this is one of the hardest jobs there is. Before I bought this firm, I did a lot of different things. I worked at Microsoft, I worked at Eli Lilly, I worked at General Mills, I worked at a small tech firm. I've seen a lot of different roles, and I've been in finance and marketing and sales and biz dev and like everything in the world because I get bored easily and I shift around a lot. And this is a really tough job. Like it's hard to explain to people. I joke with folks that like, we're like the Grim Reaper when it comes to tax time because everybody owes money, right? And then they have to pay us, which makes it even worse. And then we don't have time to like always explain things to them in detail. And it's always more expensive than they want. And then it keeps getting more expensive because tax code keeps getting more complex. So I spent 9 years experiencing that first as a firm owner and trying to make sure that we were working efficiently and trying to provide a good customer experience. But I actually think like I'd even go further back than that in terms of understanding, client experiences and how to deliver good experiences in different contexts. And that was helpful for me. And then, I basically was looking, like I mentioned at the chemical company, we were looking at the application of AI and I was thinking like, this is amazing what we can do here. And like, it's just so similar to what I see in my tax practice. And I would say like, I was just talking to a bookkeeper on staff this morning, bookkeeping's like maybe 80% or 90% automated now, but tax is like zero, basically. I mean, effectively there's some solutions out there, but I think for most small firms, like they're still manually typing in numbers, manually reviewing those numbers. I mean, we're using tax software, which is very helpful. We're not like manually, writing things down on a 1040 anymore with our hands. But that being
Yeah.
said, like even that is very little automation. It's doing some calculation for us, and it's kind of helping us find what field to put things in. But it's still in a really, a state that is just really, really elementary or remedial or whatever you want to call it. Like even if you go look at those softwares, it still looks like they were built in the 90s or the early 2000s. And so the problem was screaming at me because of my, my needs as a firm owner. And then in terms of the product development process, I first pulled in a really great engineer, who's our head of AI. And I just said, hey, Jack, let's just like sit and work on some of these documents and see if we can take this data and we can extract it really, really accurately, then I think there's some really cool things we can do with it, with a language model. And so we started to play around with that, found some really good success in being able to extract data from like all sorts of source documents, not just tax returns, but W-2s and 1099s and all the different kind of source data that we have. And it worked really, really well. We were both kind of blown away, and like we didn't even start the company yet. We just said like, let's just play with this as a side
See
project.
if it'll work.
And so once we saw it working with like 99.9+% accuracy, we kind of said, okay, I think we've got something really interesting here. Let's figure out what we can do with it, right? And so we started actually with tax automation. That's a longer road to kind of bring it to market because of the integrations needed there, but it's what we started with. And then later on, we kind of said, hey, what if we like, now that we have this database of data and we can strip out like some of the PII that you need to do from a security perspective, like what if we just start talking to the language model about this data? And that's kind of where the genesis came for TruePilot, which is a virtual assistant that, where you can basically like look at tax law and you can look at your client data and you can, understand the impact of tax law on your client data, which is kind of an interesting, quirky little product that I think is really cool, but also like there's nothing like it out there. So I will see kind of how much adoption it gets. But that being said, we started there and then we went to like my firm first and we said, okay, let's hand this product to them and see what, how they use it. And so that was kind of the first, few users. And to be honest, I wouldn't have subjected any other firm to that experience. And if I had, they probably wouldn't be a customer of ours anymore. But with my firm, I can at least, tell them I'd like for them to continue using it and press through. And also it was free at first, right, for us. So we did it there. And we actually since March have been using the product. So it's been a long time. Well, relative in startup world, it's been a long time that we've been using that product. And then it's just like, even as we've seen, so we went public like 4 weeks ago. We actually just started onboarding people about 2 weeks ago. And it's been really cool to watch how they try to use the product, because that's one thing that's really important here for AI is, our industry doesn't know how to use it yet, right? And for a lot of our users, like I may have used Chat GPT for, like asking random questions that I might have otherwise Googled, but I haven't used it to try to like actually in my workflow. And so it's really, really new for folks. And as such, there's not a lot of context in terms of like how to use it most effectively. And that's one of the big challenges for us. And anybody who's building new software in this space is you're going to have to train people as you go along on like how to use AI and how to use it in a space where the risk is very high. So meaning like you need to know where AI is not working as well as where it is and like where it might hallucinate or things like that. And we have controls in place to manage that. But, I think it's really important to say out loud of like, we as an industry need to understand how to apply this technology, what it's good at, what it's not good at. And that's going to be a learning experience, even with companies like TruePrep and other companies that are working on AI, right? Like at the Engage conference, there were so many, AI was on every poster, right? Like everybody was joking about that.
Right.
Um, and we're all going to need to understand together like how to apply this technology. It's going to be revolutionary, I think, for our industry, and I think a lot of people believe that. But in order to apply it properly and make sure that we have to understand the technology enough to use it in a way where we can get predictable results, right, and then expand on that over time.
Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely hit on, I have a lot of conversations with our users, and that's, some of those things are definitely still true, right? We're only effectively 18 months ish into this world, post Chat GPT launch, and there's still a lot of, I wouldn't say so much hesitation as it is just uninformed or misinformation that continues to go around how data is being used and all those things. And certainly there's, uh, absolutely rightfully so, concern about where the data is being used and how it's being used and who's going to be seeing it and where it's being stored and all that. So 100%, but it does feel like there's constant information coming from a lot of different trajectories that people have to process and then figure
Yeah.
out, okay, is that applied to all of the products or just this product or some of the products? And so I'm curious, as you're bringing your product to market, you said you've been sort of out there for about 4 weeks or so. What are some of the biggest challenges that you are feeling right now? Is it primarily just around that we're still in an unsure environment of what AI is capable of, can do, and how it's applying to your specific situation? Is that kind of what you're seeing more around that, or something else?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many angles to this. It's really interesting. I think one is like professional skepticism, which is one of the values, right? This an AI CPA like value that we have as part of our ethics. That is important in this type of industry where if you make mistakes, it's really, really stressful for clients and it can cost them money and all the things and cause just endless pain in terms of having to call the IRS, which has been a debacle here the last couple of years. So there's like a necessary skepticism, but there's also this other component, which is that like we're a profession that's been stuck in the past a little bit, and part of that is because of the adoption of new technology for like practitioners, right? And how fast we are to adopt new technology, how much we're willing to pay for software, all those different things. And I've been, on the receiving end of that, like I've been the person who's been skeptical about new software, right? And so I can see it both ways. And I think what we've seen in the marketplace is there's a lot of interest around AI. There's definitely like people that want to learn more. There's some misunderstanding of AI. Like I will say that there's not, you asked me like to rate a general like CPA and how much they know about AI, I would say is like maybe below 3 out of 10, right? Like it's not a lot. And I think we're starting to talk about it more as an industry, but the reality is there's not a lot of practical applications out there. There's people using Chat GPT and things like that to start to do new things. But I think that almost could be like a backlash because the reality is like, Chat GPT from a security perspective and from in terms of like reliability, if you want to think about it that way, is it getting you predictable results? I think is limited in certain ways. And so I think you're going to need to have, like, we have an agentic system that uses different agents to prevent hallucination, right? And we have a RAG system that improves the relevance. When you do ask a question to our search engine, we'll tell the search engine, hey, you need to be looking at this is a question about state taxes, and it's about Wisconsin. And so you need to look only at the Wisconsin state tax law, right, to give an answer here. And so we will give more predictable or reliable results than like a general foundational model would. And there's ways to train models on your own to do that. And a lot of people are playing around with that. And I think what you'll see is that there may be like hey, this tech isn't as good as we thought it was going to be because people are not applying it correctly. And then there's going to be a learning curve. And you see that with a lot of the adoption of any new technology. There's, typically it takes a decade. I don't think it's going to be a decade in this case. I think we're starting to move faster with our adoption of technology, just, in the world in general, not just in accounting. But I will say that I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting conversations to be had. And in general, I think the biggest thing I would say is that I do believe technology is going to change our profession. It already has, right? And it's changing at an increasing pace. And we're going to be pressed by the customer experience that's provided by the competitors that we have, not just like other firms that might adopt technology faster and have a better experience, but even like TurboTax, right? I have more and more people that use TurboTax before they ever come to a CPA or an accountant. In fact, I sometimes tell them like, hey, you're really simple and I don't want to do this $300 tax return. Like you should go use TurboTax. But that being said, like, I think we as an industry need to come to grips with the fact that there's going to be more competition over time for providing a better customer experience. And that may come from other firms that adopt technology faster. It may come from, platforms like TurboTax that automate tax filing for consumers to do themselves. Who knows what that's going to play out, how that's going to play out. But I know that it's, we all know as a profession, like it's going to continue to make our jobs, raise the bar, I guess I would say, in terms of the client experience that we bring. So there's a lot from an industry perspective. There's reasonable skepticism. There's, hesitation to adopt certain things. There's like, you could even argue some of the technology providers in our space may be slow to adopt AI because of lots of different reasons. And I think that's probably the case, right? And then historically, like it's not been a high innovation space is kind of what I would say. And I think that I hope to help change that. But I think there's a lot of really interesting startups that are starting in lots of different areas, not just tax, but audit and bookkeeping and all these different areas to try to create solutions for AI that are, that are going to create trust within the industry, I guess I would say, and create really good solutions that are like specially focused on the things that we do as accountants. And so that it's exciting, but I think we as an industry also need to like, grapple with, okay, how do we deal with security and how do we deal with all these like, what even about like predictability or reliability of results? Like how are we going to educate our industry as we go along and adopt more AI, because it's going to be built into a lot of our solutions here in a very short order of time.
All right. So as you're bringing this product to market, we've talked about just sort of some of the challenges with AI in the market. I'm curious if you find that with with all the hype around AI at the moment, is that giving you more inroads to good conversations, or do you feel like you're being met with eye rolls because, as you said, at Engage, right, everything had AI on their banners and everywhere, and so is that giving you more opportunity to have good conversation, or are you being met with some, oh no, not another AI product?
Yeah, I think it's both. Ironically, like it is helpful in getting initial conversations, and it's a hindrance in terms of the disbelief that you have to work through. That like people come up and Engage, for example, and just be like, "Is this even real?" You know what I mean? Did you just make up this video? Basically, does this product do what you say it's going to do? And so I think there's an interest level that's helpful, and then there's a skepticism that can be a hurdle that we have to overcome.
Yeah. So one of the things that you're doing within TruePilot that I think is interesting, we were chatting the other day, I think is we try to within Spark try to put things in there that's going to give people that the ability to go from 0 to 1 with AI. We still feel like there's a lot of that, right? Where it's just, let's just get people familiar, comfortable with what it can do. And I think one of the features that you've put in there is kind of around this giving user confidence, right? So, can I trust it? Well, so talk about maybe some of the things that you're doing within TruePilot for sure, that really allow you to say, not only can you trust this answer, but here, go check it out for yourself.
Yeah. So what we do is like it talks to you about the logic that it's using, and I think like whether it's TruePilot or any other AI application, it's something we all have to work on, which is creating trust and an understanding of how the AI is working, because I think that increased transparency is going to be really helpful in terms of driving adoption for the industry. So when you submit a query, it will say like you're asking about tax law. And therefore, I'm going to go look like this is a state tax question and this is a Wisconsin question. I'm going to go right there to the Department of Revenue for Wisconsin and get you an answer. And that way, if like you don't get a result that you expect, one, you can like give us feedback and you can thumbs down a result and like give us, feedback on that. And we look at that every day. And then secondly, it like gives you an increased confidence that it's like looking in the right place, right? And the way to understand how to like ask the right questions. And it's particularly important for us because like we have client data and tax data, and then we have the ability to, look at a change in tax data, like a tax law, and apply it to a client. And so think about like the complexity there, where you're like, I don't know if this is looking at a particular client or it's asking me, so like you can end up with a lot of confusion there if you're not careful about how you design these products. And so what we're trying to do is give even more transparency into how an AI engine is working versus, a typical like GPT or any of the other foundational models. But I think it's like a great example of just how different this is going to be for our industry and how to like think differently about how to bring AI into this industry. And that, I'm sure there's going to be hopefully a lot of examples of how people do this in different ways. But it's been kind of fun for us to sit and think about like very few products where you can't look at a competitor and say like, this is what it should look like, right? But as we were designing this, we were kind of like, it can't look like GPT because you're not even going to know what you can ask. So like we have prompts at the very top above the
Right.
search bar that just like give you some ideas of what it can do. And then as a firm, you can save
Yeah.
some for your team and do some other creative things. But like we were literally just making it up as we go. And I hope there's other people that are like, going to move this forward because I'm sure there's better ways of doing some of these things. But those are just a couple of the things that we used. And, but it was kind of fun. I mean, even our head of product was like, I don't know how to design this because no one's ever built something like this before. And so I think there's going to be some really fun design challenges with products that are using AI.
Yeah, yeah, certainly you bring a really good perspective there, in that there, certainly we have user interface and user experience patterns that we can lean on, but they are different. They are just fundamentally different when you're interacting in this way. So it is a
Yeah.
challenge, and requires a different set of um, skills, and also just you got to just put something out there, see how it works, and then we go from there. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And
I
and
am
think about
curious.
that for
Yeah,
like our profession and how like we may need to have a different attitude. Like I tell people all the time, they probably ignore me most of the time, but I'm like, give me tons of feedback. You know what I mean? Like this is super helpful for us. We will pay attention to it.
yeah,
We're going to need more of that. Like if you think about some of the products we've been using for many years, they've had years of optimization. Like these are going to be brand new ways of trying to do work. And so it's going to be even more important that like we're very customer centric and listening to what people are saying in terms of feedback. And also that like that we as accountants are giving lots of feedback to the software companies that are building these solutions.
yeah. I think good plug there. I think more than ever, I think uh, we certainly are, you are, most companies are very welcoming and need the feedback, right? They need the feedback from their users to be able to make meaningful modifications and updates and upgrades to their platforms. So yeah, good plug there for everyone.
Yep.
So I'm curious, Dave, as we kind of start to wrap up here, put on your sort of, we can get out our magic wands or look at our crystal balls or whatever. And as it relates to just AI and the capabilities and the functionality that you're seeing and sort of some of the new things that are coming out, what kind of impacts, maybe medium term here, so maybe more in the 12 to 18 month range, which is, I think, probably the trickiest, because it's just on the edge of like, we can start to see the shape of the things that are going to be in 12 to 18 months, but also something could happen next week that totally throws it all out the window. So 12
Yep.
to 18 months, what do you feel like the big opportunity is that we have as a profession to really, really embrace what AI is giving us?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to see AI start to penetrate the average firm's workflows, and I think it's going to start with like email. Like TruePrep's not big enough, so I'm thinking like Carbon and Canopy and some of those folks, right? And even what you're doing with Spark, right? It's going to start to improve research. It's going to start to improve the way we communicate with clients. Like those are the things that foundational models do really well, and it's not that hard for those companies to build in like an API that can put that information at your fingertips. So I think the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see it really like fundamentally change most firms. Communication, research, like anything dealing with language is going to go first. So those would be
Yep.
the first things to go. And I hope you'll start to see innovative firms use it for advisory services, which is kind of where we're going with it. But that being said, like we're so small that I don't know it will qualify as a material change in the industry in 12 to 18 months, but hopefully so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you joining us today. So, how can our audience connect with you or learn more about TruePrep?
Yeah, people are welcome to reach out. David, TruePrep.ai is my email. And they can check out TruePrep. TruePrep.ai is our website, and we're updating stuff by the week. So there's always fun new releases. If people want to sit and watch what's happening on the cusp of AI, that'd be a good place to start. And we do product updates for people that follow our newsletter and things like that. So that'd be a great way to start. And if people want to email me, if there's other ways they want to get in touch, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'll be on all the social platforms here relatively soon.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, Dave, I'm really excited to see sort of how things evolve for TruePrep over the coming months and years. And I really appreciate you jumping on with us today. For the rest of our audience, you can feel free to leave some comments. So we are on YouTube. Leave comments. Certainly any feedback you've got, like we said a minute ago, any feedback you've got is welcome. So let us know. what we can do to continue supporting implementation of AI across the board, no matter what the product is. And we hope to see you again soon. So thanks all. Take care.